I turned on the light and headed for the bedroom, thinking my cheating wife was asleep. But before I could process anything, pain exploded in my face. A blinding, searing sensation spread through my skull as I collapsed onto the floor. My vision swam, darkness creeping in at the edges. I barely had time to register the sound of footsteps approaching before a shadow loomed over me. "This is the end for you," a cold voice murmured. That night, I had walked through the front door expecting it to be like any other. Another grueling 14-hour day at the finance firm, where my boss's motto seemed to be, "If you're not exhausted, you're not working hard enough." Exhaustion had become my shadow, a constant companion in my relentless pursuit of success. But that night, relief settled over me like a heavy blanket. For once, I was going to get some rest. The house was quiet. The lights were dimmed. I assumed Amelia was already asleep. She often went to bed early these days, claiming she was too tired to wait up for me. As I made my way through the hallway, I felt something unsettling in the air. A shift, a presence I couldn't quite explain. It wasn't until I flicked on the bedroom light and saw a shadow move that the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Before I could react, a fist crashed into my face, sending me sprawling. My head cracked against the floor, and pain surged through my skull like a lightning strike. My vision blurred. I struggled to focus, to push past the disorientation. A figure emerged from the shadows, towering over me. "This is the end for you," he repeated, his voice smooth, deliberate, final. 6 years ago, I thought I had hit the jackpot. Amelia and I met at a networking gala in Prague. She was magnetic, her dark curls framing a face that belonged on the cover of a magazine. She was studying architecture at the time, while I was climbing the ranks in investment banking. We bonded over ambition, over dreams of building something meaningful. She wanted to design the world's most beautiful buildings. I wanted to fund them. Our life together seemed perfect. After we got married, we moved into a stunning home in Vienna, filled with art and elegance. But as my career took off, my time with her dwindled. Late nights at the office, constant travel, endless deadlines, it all took its toll. Amelia would tell me she felt lonely, that I was married to my job, not to her. I tried to make it up to her. Weekend getaways, expensive gifts, but the spark we once had was fading, and I couldn't figure out how to reignite it. It started subtly. Amelia had always been an open book, but suddenly her phone was always in her hand. She would step out of the room to take calls, laughing at messages she never shared with me. When I asked, she waved it off, claiming it was just her friends. I wanted to believe her. After all, trust was the foundation of our marriage. Wasn't it? Then came the business trip. 3 days in Zurich to close a major deal. On the second day, my meeting ended early, and I decided to surprise her by coming home ahead of schedule. I imagined her face lighting up when she saw me walk through the door. Instead, what I found left me ice cold. As I pulled into the driveway, an unfamiliar black Audi was parked out front. My heart sank. Amelia's friends didn't drive cars like that. This was a car that screamed wealth and status, the kind of thing I noticed as a banker. I told myself it could be a client, but doubt gnawed at me. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. I set down my bag and moved toward the living room, where I heard muffled voices. And then her laugh. Soft, intimate, a sound I hadn't heard in months. I stepped closer, peering around the corner. There she was, sitting on the couch with a man I didn't recognize. Handsome, polished. His posture was too familiar, too relaxed. He leaned in just a little too close. Amelia's hand rested on his knee. My world tilted on its axis. A rush of anger, of betrayal, surged through me. But I didn't confront them. Not yet. I needed proof. Quietly, I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo. Then I retreated into the hallway, my mind racing. Who was this man? How long had this been going on? The next week passed in a haze. I pretended everything was fine while I pieced together the truth. I hired a private investigator who confirmed what I had already feared. The man's name was Victor, a real estate developer, one of Amelia's clients. They had been seeing each other for months, meeting in secret at hotels, and sometimes in my own home. The investigator handed me a dossier filled with photos, transcripts of their text messages. I skimmed through Amelia's words, each one cutting me like a blade. Lucas is too busy for me. He doesn't see me anymore. I clenched my fists. The Amelia I loved, the woman who once dreamed with me, had become someone I no longer recognized. And now, lying on the floor bleeding, I realized she had chosen more than just an affair. She had chosen to end me. Victor, you make me feel alive again. I could have confronted her right then and there, demanded answers, screamed my anger into the night. But I wanted her to feel the full weight of her actions, to know that every lie, every stolen moment had consequences. So I planned, carefully, methodically, knowing I only had one shot to make this count. The night I turned on the bedroom light, I expected to see an empty space where love once thrived. Instead, I found Victor standing there. He must have seen my car pull up, realized the inevitable was coming, and decided to take the first strike. His attack was swift, a blur of motion in the dimly lit room, but I was faster. As he lunged, his fist aiming for my jaw, I dodged, years of instinct kicking in. He leaned over me, ready to strike again, but I kicked upward, catching him hard in the stomach. He stumbled back, gasping for air, and I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline surging through me. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" I yelled, my voice raw with fury. My chest heaved as I stared him down, heart pounding against my ribs. In the doorway, Amelia appeared. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. "Lucas, stop. It's not what you think." I let out a hollow, bitter laugh. "Not what I think. So you didn't bring him here? You didn't betray me?" The accusation hung heavy in the air between us, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Victor, recovering from my blow, straightened and stepped forward. His usual arrogance wavered, but only for a moment. "Amelia, let's go," he said, reaching for her arm, attempting to pull her away as if I were nothing more than an inconvenience. "No one's going anywhere," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Not until I'm finished." I walked over to the bed and pulled out the dossier I had spent weeks compiling. Every detail, every betrayal, every lie was documented in cold, hard facts. I threw it onto the bed, watching as the pages fanned out like scattered pieces of our broken marriage. "This is what you've been doing behind my back," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Months of lies, sneaking around, disrespecting everything we built. You thought I wouldn't find out." Amelia's eyes brimmed with tears, but I felt nothing for them. "Lucas, please. Let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," I replied, my tone void of warmth. "You made your choice. Now it's my turn." Victor's entire business thrived on trust and reputation. Without those, he was nothing. I had hired a private investigator to compile a detailed report. Hotel receipts, surveillance photos, damning timestamps that painted an irrefutable picture of their affair. With a few keystrokes, I sent the evidence anonymously to his biggest investors. Within days, his empire began to crumble as clients withdrew their funding, unwilling to associate with a man who had no honor. As for Amelia, her architectural firm prided itself on integrity and professionalism. I knew exposing her affair would stain her career beyond repair. I leaked the evidence to her company's HR department, along with proof that she had misused company time and resources for her personal escapades. The repercussions were swift. She was suspended pending an internal investigation, her once promising career hanging by a thread. The next day, I filed for divorce. Armed with undeniable proof of her infidelity, the courts ruled in my favor. I kept the house, the assets, my dignity. Amelia was left with nothing but regret. Months passed. Through mutual friends, I heard whispers of their downfall. Victor, stripped of his wealth and influence, lost his company and fled the country, unable to face the wreckage of his reputation. Amelia, once the rising star of her firm, was now a mere shadow of her former self, reduced to freelancing, scraping by in a small apartment. She tried to reach out to me, to apologize, to explain. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I focused on myself, on rebuilding, on healing, on rediscovering the man I had lost in the midst of heartbreak. I poured my energy into my career, my health, my happiness. The betrayal had broken me, but from the ruins, I rebuilt something stronger. It taught me my worth, and that I deserved someone who valued loyalty and respect. I would never settle for less again. The night I turned on that light, I thought my world was ending, but in reality, it was a new beginning. Sometimes, the people who betray us end up being our greatest teachers. They show us what we will never tolerate again. They remind us that we are capable of walking away from what no longer serves us, and never looking back. Betrayal does not define you. How you rise from it does. And sometimes, the best revenge is knowing you never needed them to be whole in the first place.